Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm Clinton Chisholm. Remember, you can make your contribution to our discussion on our Facebook page at Love 101 FM, where we're asking, what are your thoughts on the view that the structure and function of some churches negatively affect family life? It's now time for the main watch. Over a year ago, the government started the process of developing credit reporting legislation. That's now passed. And just last week, 2 credit bureaus or credit reporting agencies were granted licenses by the Bank of Jamaica. This morning we speak to Ms. Megan Dean of Creditinfo, one of the agencies, to get a better understanding of what all of this means. We did try to make contact with the other agency, Chris N.M. Good morning, Ms. Dean.
Reverend Chisholm, how are you today?
I'm not too bad, thanks. And how are you keeping?
I continue to acknowledge I am blessed. Thank you.
Great. What really is a credit bureau and why do we need them in Jamaica?
Okay, first of all, let me just correct something that you said in your opening statement. We actually were licensed a year ago, but that license came with preconditions to operation that we had to fulfill. And we were given 12 months under the license to fulfill those preconditions. So that was what the process that we were going through for the past year, signing up the credit information providers, ensuring that the security systems and so on were in place so that the Bank of Jamaica could come back in and inspect and give us the final clearance. So it has been a very rigorous and exhaustive process of getting things ready to go.
You want to give us a glimpse of some of the preconditions?
Well, we had to sign some of the credit information providers to demonstrate that they were willing to support the system. These are some of the building societies, the banks, the credit unions, the hire purchase companies, and so on, the development banks. And we can say that we, up to the date that we were inspected by Bank of Jamaica, had signed over 30 credit information providers, including all the banks, 3 building societies, several credit unions, a hire purchase company, both development banks. So we were well placed in terms of knowing that we would have significant data in our information bases. We also had to demonstrate to them the security systems that are in place to protect the information that we will get. And we indicated and were able to take them on a tour of our data storage facility. Our primary storage is at the digital facility at Caymanas, which is the highest level of security in the Caribbean, not just Jamaica. And then also demonstrate our backup facilities. We also had to show them that our credit bureau system worked, that we were able to actually transport the data over from our credit information providers and using real data now, not just dummy data, showing real data from these credit information providers, be able to produce a single report which corresponded to the tax registration number of a subject whose permission we had received to pull their information. So we were able to demonstrate all of that, as well as the actual systems and protocols and our operating manuals had to be in place, our business continuity plan, our risk management processes. It has really been a good preparation. The year has really positioned us to be sure that when we start as we mean to continue.
So you're good to go now?
We are good to go. So what we're involved now for this next few weeks is the training of our credit information providers on using the actual system that is in place. And we have trainers who have started to arrive from Europe because our joint venture partner is a European company, Creditinfo Group. And we will be working with our credit information providers and those who have not been able to send over their data yet, because we need to help them to ensure that the data is clean, that there are no minimal errors, because we don't want to start and have people complaining that what's in their report is not so, that they paid off their loan a long time ago. So we're helping our credit information providers to be sure that their information is current and accurate. But back to your original question now, where you say, well, what is a credit bureau and why do we need a credit reporting framework? Well, let me just declare up front that we have in Jamaica been using credit information for many years. I mean, we did have institutions that would go to financial institutions and seek to find out what a particular client exposure was, and then the clients themselves, if you recall, would also be required to go to their credit institutions and get a reference letter. That is a form of credit reporting. Okay. But what the reporting framework is now putting in place is a structure around that. It is one of the parameters that is looked at in terms of how a country does business and in the assessment of the financial evolution of a market. So by having the legislation and having a formal framework around it, we are actually moving up on this international scale of how you do business in a country. That's one thing. The other thing is that we are now moving towards an electronic framework where the credit information providers are given a software, hardware, electronic platform which makes the transmission of information between the information providers and the credit bureau seamless and more efficient. So the credit bureau system is really very high technology, which allows the information providers to send over the information on a very regular basis without too much involvement of humans. Once the system has been set up and their computer systems start to talk to each other on a predetermined time frame, whether nightly or weekly, we will take information no less frequently than monthly. Then they will send us their information. It is stored in the credit information system. And then when an individual or a company goes to an institution for a credit facility and that institution wishes to know the credit history of that applicant, they send to the bureau. We use a unique identifier. In our case, we're using the tax registration number. And if that applicant is in our database from all the 30-odd and more, because we're constantly seeking to sign up additional credit information providers, then whatever information is in there will be sent to that institution with the consent of that applicant, and they can get a very good idea of how they have treated with their financial responsibility.
What's in it for a credit provider? Why would I want to sign up as a company who provides credit to people?
Well, it assists that institution with their risk management processes. Instead of the time that is expended, whether doing their own investigations or waiting while that applicant goes to all their previous historic associations with credit to bring the references, they are able to actually go online. We are able to integrate into their systems, or they can use our web services, go on, type in a TRN number, and get information at their fingertips. It's supposed to give them full information because, sometimes per applicants go in, they may not necessarily give the full idea of their exposures out there. But once we have a substantive database, which we already have and are going to make even stronger, there will be a good chance that they will get comprehensive, complete information, which allows them to see how that individual has operated. It makes their decision-making quicker. It makes their decisions better. They're better able to structure a facility to suit the needs of a particular applicant. Because it's not because the credit score that is attached to the history may be on the lower end of the range that's going to screen out an applicant. I know persons are very concerned that, oh my gosh, my credit score is going to be low and so I'm not going to get a facility. That's not the case. What it means is that they will better price that facility because they will know how much more time they will have to spend monitoring that facility or working with that applicant to be sure that they manage their responsibilities properly. So it is a win-win for both the applicant and the institution. So there is definitely a vested interest. As I say, we have signed up over 30 in the year, and we anticipate that in another year when I'm speaking with you again, we would have more than doubled that number of signers.
Yeah, arbitrarily, no. Could a landlord access your files to get information on me, a person intending to rent somewhere?
There's absolutely nothing arbitrary about how the credit reporting framework has been structured, Reverend Chisholm. No one can access anyone's credit report without their consent.
Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. The legislation is extremely protective of the consumer, and I'm speaking of both individuals and companies here. So even though we would have all this information in our database, no institution or individual landlord or otherwise can access someone else's credit report.
Well, can you buy it?
You cannot buy it unless you are the institution that has provided information to us, and even then you may only do so with that subject's consent. You cannot pull a report without consent. But what a landlord could do, they could ask the individual who seeks to become their tenant to bring them their credit report, or to have the credit bureau send that report directly to them, so that they can get an idea of whether or not the person is someone who has handled their credit responsibilities in the manner in which they would wish. So we anticipate that in time, as the market becomes more educated, that the usage of credit reports as an assessment tool is going to be greater, whether for landlords or prospective employers, but they would only be able to access it if that individual gives their consent.
Here's a rough one. I had to try and bring my mind to the American system when we lived there for a few years.
Yes.
We worked hard to be debt-free. Went to America, and I didn't exist because I wanted to buy a car and I don't have any credit history.
That is so true. That is almost, one of the situations that some persons don't understand. Mm-hmm. Certainly in America, having a credit history is almost a form of currency. In fact, as you say, if you do not have a credit history, then they know nothing about you. They have no means on which to independently assess how you have responded to having responsibilities. And so one of the things that is likely to happen here, as is the situation in the United States, is that people have to develop their credit history. If you don't have a credit history, it means that they're going to assume the worst about you, and they're going to give you the highest risk rating because you cannot demonstrate that you have been able to handle your responsibilities. They're going to look at you as an unknown quantity, and they're going to give you the highest rate, so you won't get any interest rate breaks, as someone who has a credit history with a good credit score would be able to negotiate for themselves. You are going to have to spend some time working through that credit history process before that institution would then be able to have a credit history that they send over to the bureau, and then after that you would start getting the break. So young people, and that's a group that we're going to start talking to, is that they're going to have to start taking out maybe a little higher purchase items so that they can start showing that they're paying it off. Even if they don't need the credit, they need to develop